Welcome to the tilingconnect podcast. This podcast is designed to raise the standards of the tiling industry by sourcing and sharing the best and latest in standards, technology, and innovation with its listeners. Before we get started, everything we talk about in this podcast is general in nature and does not consider your own personal situation. You should always seek professional advice for any specific matters.
Hello everybody, welcome to Tiling Connect. I'm your host, Mark Moskwa. In today's episode, I thought it was a perfect time to shift gears and talk a little bit more about me and my partnership with my girlfriend, Sian. See, we met in 2008 when we worked in Executive Recruitment. We secretly dated for approximately 5 months before the news was shared at an end-of-quarter party, which is pretty typical in executive recruitment. It was an incredibly raw and honest start to any relationship either of us had previously experienced. And today, we are sharing more about how we have grown together and supported each other. Welcome, Sian.
Thank you for having me.
So, Sian, we've been together now for 14 years, and in that time, we've shared and experienced some pretty incredible things. So I thought, what better place to start than the beginning? Probably even a little bit more before then. We could start with pre-beginning. So you could tell us a little bit more about you and your background and what sort of work you did before we met.
This is a very interesting question that you ask, what I was doing before we met and got into recruitment. I was actually in flooring for 8 years. I worked for the Australian organisation Carpet Call, and I was there for 8 years, actually. So I was also in flooring even before we met.
Tell me a little bit more about Carpet Call. What did you do for Carpet Call when you worked there?
Look, it was my first full-time job, and I was really excited to earn a salary and not be on an hourly wage anymore, straight out of hospo. So I started as a rug salesperson. So I was selling rugs directly to through retail, through the stores. Progressed through to being a store manager, eventually a state sales manager for the rug division. And then I went into the builders division as well. So that's when we really sort of, when I hit my stride and sort of went into something a bit more, a big scale beyond basic retail and started servicing major builders like Henley, Plantation, Clarendon Homes, that sort of thing.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. And how many years did you spend in flooring?
8.
8 years.
8 years in total.
Wow.
It was a long time. I'm surprised considering the industry that we're in that we never met before then.
Yeah.
Quite remarkable that we met in recruitment.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I started in flooring in late 2003, early 2004 in tiles.
Right.
And in Springwood too, mind you. So I wasn't probably far away from where you were working.
I was in Mansfield. In Mansfield.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. So we were pretty close, working in very similar flooring environment. However, we didn't know each other.
No.
There you go. They're very cool.
It's super cool.
That is cool. So that's a little bit about pre-recruitment, and then you decided in 2008 or maybe late 2007 to make a change. What change was that? How did that happen?
Well, there are so many things leading up to that moment, but I think it was fate. I'm going to go straight out there and say it was fate because I was going through a recruitment agency for my next role beyond flooring, and I was looking for something in the construction industry, and I had interviews with the likes of MD McDonald, so like JD McDonald, all of the hand drying equipment and things like that with architecture firms and all those sorts of things. But the recruitment agency that I had been going through, which happened to be Buckingham Recruitment, kept calling me back and saying, "Are you sure that you haven't really thought about, getting into recruitment? Have you thought about that?" And I was consistently saying no. And have you found me a job yet? That was pretty much the conversations that I was having on every 2 days with that agency. And eventually it got to a point where I actually got to a point where I started considering sales within a service industry and not a product. And that was my big jump into recruitment and where I met you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Interestingly enough, right? So I transcended from working in a retail sort of somewhat commercial environment in tiles for more than 5 years into recruitment and had a very similar experience. I had someone knock on my door and ask me if I would consider looking at recruitment opportunities. And it was completely foreign to me. It was something that I'd never done before. I was sort of, I was honoured, but also was also very nervous at the same time to even take a leap of faith into a completely different industry.
It's weird, right? Going into a service industry is odd.
Exactly, because you go from selling a product to selling people.
Yeah.
In a really professional way. For my audience listening out there, it is very professional. But you're helping people. You're helping people make a decision about their future career and take their next steps generally into another organisation and potentially and hopefully into another progressive career step. And I was very lucky that I was able to work in the construction industry. So all of the years of experience that I had with working in retail tile stores and working with builders and working with tiling contractors and working with developers and architects and designers, that I was able to use that experience and share that with in the recruitment space. So it helped me a lot.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I know that you were in construction and you were doing executive recruitment in construction, and those sorts of roles were, I mean, you were placing all sorts of different kinds of people from memory. You were placing like contract administrators, all sorts of different people within, like all the way up to the top of the food chain. I was in building products, so I was actually still representing selling people, like a service, people into a product industry still. So that was really interesting for me as well.
Yeah, very cool. So we met at Buckingham Recruitment. I was working there. You joined the business. We had this pseudo secret dating relationship for a period of time before I think a few people in our branch had some suspicions that things were occurring, and eventually someone put two and two together, and then it was table talk at one of the recruitment.
It was a big unveiling.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we can talk about
it. Dramatic.
We can talk about it being an unveiling now, right? So it was sort of like an unveiling in front of about 40 people.
We didn't know it was happening.
No, but there was 40 people from two different recruitment firms that were all part of the B series, and it was like, oh my god! And I think it was Christmas too, by the way.
I think you're right.
And there was lots of champagne and celebrations, and then hey, by the way, Mark and Sian are dating. And then
it was a bombshell that went nowhere though, because everyone was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, I think secretly a lot of people knew.
Yeah.
So
maybe it wasn't that secret.
Exactly. And look, recruitment was an interesting couple of years. It was a great time, and we met some amazing people, learned many great skills, and had fantastic experiences that we kept with us for a lot of our future careers, which was really awesome. And of course, you know, the amazing thing that came out of it was that we met. Had we not chosen those pathways, we would never have met.
I often feel like I was pushed into that role, and it was for good reason.
Exactly. So fast forwarding ever so briefly, I mentioned before that it was a very brief encounter in recruitment. In 2009, 2008, 2009, the GFC, global financial crisis, had occurred, and at the time we had, from memory, 750 executive recruitment consultants were laid off in about 3 months in Brisbane.
It was a lot.
It was a lot of people. A lot of firms went under. There was a massive internal restructure in many organisations across sales, construction, retail, where recruitment was being handled internally only. Don't talk to executive recruitment consultants. We're not paying those fees, which was, we understood that. It just made our job really hard, and eventually both our careers ended. Well, my career sort of ended at that time, and I think you went on to another career with another firm for temporarily for a period of time, which was great. And I went back into working with tiles again. So that was really cool, because I'd spent a long time there.
We both went back to product, actually, because I went straight out and started working for one of my clients.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And who was that?
Jim Boomba Turf.
Jim Boomba Turf, yeah, great. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Jim Boomba Turf, wow.
For Cherie and Lynn. They're absolutely rad.
As we move forward through our life journey together, you know, friends, family, and we'd been together for a couple of years. There was some health complications that threw us very much a curveball in around about 2011. And that was a pretty, I think for both of us, it was a pretty hard time, but I'm certainly not going to speak on behalf of you today in our interview because that would be really unfair. And you're more than welcome to share a little bit, a lot, or nothing at all. However, I know for myself, in 2011, it was an incredibly hard time, particularly with you being in hospital and the moment that it happened and how it happened, and it was challenging, and it dynamically shifted and changed our relationship.
I think it changed everything, but it definitely changed how we were and what we did and how we did things from then on.
Yeah.
So I, long story short, basically had TIAs, which are considered mini strokes, which were caused by a tear in a vertebral artery. We were camping at the time when it all went kind of south. Randomly on a public holiday. It was Anzac Day in 2012, actually, that one. It started in 2011, the whole thing, but in 2012. And, I'm going to put it right out there and say that you're not a manual driver. And we...
No. Thanks for that.
I had... At the time, you weren't. I had a Jeep at the time, and we were camping with the Jeep that was a manual. And after a few days camping, I'd actually been having headaches for a couple of months. And long story short, it all kind of came to a head on Anzac Day. And I suddenly couldn't speak and I lost, feeling in the left side of my body.
That's right. You had partial paralysis, right?
Yeah. Lost feeling in the left side of my body. And I had to get you to drive us to the local hospital, which actually was the Gold Coast hospital. And by some freak of nature, the head of neurology was on that day and was my doctor.
I remember.
Yeah, so there were a couple of different things that happened in between, but basically that's not a quick recovery for anyone. It wasn't easy. It was terrifying, all of those sorts of things, but I think that considering we'd only been together really for like 3 years, that was a huge recovery effort for our relationship to actually go through something like that and then come out the other side better, stronger, all of those things. But it took a long time to build on what we were doing, as a relationship. What were you going to say?
No, look, absolutely. There was, reflecting back upon it now, and I have on many occasions throughout my life, there were some incredibly dark times there.
Yeah.
More for you than there was for me. However, falling back in, actually for the first time in my life, actually experiencing depression, which is obviously a mental health issue. I had no idea what was going on because I still vividly remember, I think at the time I was working for an adhesive company. I think it was RLA at the time. And I remember driving up into central Queensland, possibly even to far north Queensland. It was on one of my road trips. And I was in Rockhampton. I still remember the day. And I think the GFC had certainly exacerbated my feeling because a lot of my customers that I was dealing with at the time were very... they're doing it tough.
They're still feeling the effects, right?
They were doing it tough. Business wasn't as buoyant. It wasn't as prosperous. They were really finding it hard to put the next order through, the system for their business. I was repetitively talking to customers, and this was just a cycle of, negativity over and over and over again. And then that trip to Rockhampton occurred, and it was like a light bulb moment, but not a bright spark. It was a really, really dark time. And it was like my internal talk was telling me that I just don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to do anything. Like, I literally wanted to pull over to the side of the road and just cry. I didn't want to do anything.
Yeah.
I didn't want to drive. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to go to the next customer's address. I literally wanted to just get in my car, pull over to the side of the road, not do anything. And then my very, very next thought process was, I just want to drive home. I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And it wasn't anything apart from, I was just feeling incredibly helpless. And that was the first time in my life that I'd actually, talking about it now, I know that because I was diagnosed and I sought some help and I spoke to the right people and I did all that, and I can only reflect upon that now, knowing that, I did all of what I thought at the time of the right things to get me back on track, and it worked, but it was still incredibly hard.
The things that led up to you being there, though, is really a bit of an eye-opener for me, because I only learned about your position after all of that was happening, because I was dealing with my own recovery and stuff. You pretty much, when things happened for me, you pretty much picked up everything and just ran with it. My family, my job, you were talking to everyone because I couldn't. I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
You were literally doing all of my jobs and communicating with all of my people and doing your own job and communicating with all of your people. So the things that led up to you feeling like that probably felt like the right thing to do, and all of the right things that you should say and do for all of the people, for the person that you love or the person that you're looking after, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think, you don't realise until you're in it and amongst it and feeling it and having those thoughts that that's actually what that is. And I think that that's a really hard, probably one of the hardest things about depression is recognising when it's happening, because you don't realise until you're in it going, oh my God, I just don't want to do this anymore.
100%. It is, like I said before, I can still clearly, and I can actually physically feel how I was feeling today at that time.
Forget, right?
And it was just such a sinking, overwhelming feeling that you're sitting in the car and you feel like you're drowning, and you're like, how come I can't control my emotions right now? How come I can't turn this off? Yeah. I'm a master at, doing what I do in life, and I'm a master at sales and business development and the industry that I work in. How come I can't turn this off? Your mind just becomes so powerful when you're going through that process, and it's so difficult to try and seek clarity to get through that short burst of your mind's taking over, to go, hang on, I'm just going to punch through. Give me a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
You just, at that time, there's no punching through. There is like literally, you need help, because if you don't get it, you just sink further and further down. So it was...
But you actually went and got it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which doesn't always happen for everyone.
No, look, and it doesn't always happen for everyone. But it took encouragement, though, too. I couldn't do it on my own. I think, there were people around me that were supportive.
Look, I remember you telling me about these things, and because of the place I was in, I wasn't actually able to do or be the things that you needed me to be.
Yeah. To
get you there. You needed to be pushed to somewhere else, but you went somewhere else, and you took that, and it's that step that was super important to that change in, your path.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm going to stop just for a second, because we're
digressing a lot.
we are, and I will step off this subject just for a minute, but I just want to say this, and to anybody listening out there, it's so important. The best thing that you can do, and I know that we've just recently acknowledged and in some cases celebrated Are You OK Day. However, I have seen a lot about different things where people have gone, well, it was a great day, and there's a lot of media out there about how fantastic it was, but there was probably not enough examples out there of people actually asking people if they are okay. It's really important that if you need some help, one of the best things that you can do is just talk to someone. It doesn't have to be, it can be anybody, but it's so important that when you're feeling the way that I was feeling, or if you're not feeling great, or you're feeling unhappy or depressed, or whatever the case might be, there's going to be someone you can talk to. So just have that conversation.
You have contacts for that we can.
Yeah, and we'll have contacts with that. We'll share with that at the end of the program. We'll put some links in the write up. 2012 happened. We made the exciting move to head down to Melbourne.
Yeah.
Quite out of the blue, it occurred. I know that I received a job opportunity that was too good to be true, and we both sort of fell in love with big cities when we were overseas, travelling around Europe for 6 to 8 weeks, and felt at the time that Brisbane was a little bit too much of a country town for us, and we wanted to experience more of a city lifestyle. So we packed everything up. We moved down to Melbourne, which was great, and I worked down there for RLA for a while, and I ended up eventually, after a number of months, ended up with a super cool opportunity to work with one of the major tile retailers in Australia, National Tiles, which was an amazing company. Still is an amazing company, I should say. Sorry, they're still open. So and that was incredible. However, it must have taken a lot of strength for you to make that decision to join with me and come along for the journey. I know that it wasn't your first thought to pack everything up and move to Melbourne. So tell us a little bit more about how you were feeling.
I'm not going to lie, it was super easy. No, I have had a love affair with Melbourne since I was 18 years old, and always knew I was going to live there at some point. So when you came home that day, you're like, I've got something to talk to you about. I've had a job offer down there. I was like, let's go, and wanted to throw everything into some kind of box, pack it up, and let's leave. I was really, really fortunate to be working for St. George Bank at the time, and I transferred down to Melbourne, and I just got pretty much a teller job, like a customer, like a personal banker job down there in Melbourne with Bank of Melbourne. So that was
very awesome.
My transfer. Yeah, it was fantastic, and we moved to Richmond, which was super cool. But, I totally jumped on that train. As soon as you were done, I was like, let's go.
Awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
I feel relieved. And, my job working for National Tiles was pretty full on. I joined the business in early 2013, and I was there for nearly 5 years. I had previously worked for National Tiles beforehand, so I had a little bit of a understanding of the company, the structure, and their vision, mission, and values, and what they wanted to achieve over that period of time. And between sort of 2013 and 2017, it was like a freight train. Every day and every week that I went to work, there was so much happening. We had literally grown the business. I shouldn't say just me. There was a team of people. There was a whole bunch of people within that business that were so passionate about the industry. And we grew the business, I think nearly 25% year on year for 5 years. It was an incredible journey. And I was humbled and grateful to work with so many amazing people, including, the owners and the board and the family that worked in the business. Must have been hard for you. I know that I worked many hours, and I know that I travelled a lot domestically, particularly up the eastern seaboard and into Adelaide. So how was that for you? How did you find me being away so often?
That's a really good question. I really had probably been waiting for Melbourne to happen my whole life, and I ended up really getting in with a crowd, like banking crew, made some really, really cool friends, some very, very close friends that I really hold dear to this day, like the best of friends. And, but that it pushed me into that, it pushed me into like creating my own space and finding myself a little bit more without, relying on my partner being there, which is a big jump considering what we've just been through sort of health-wise and stuff, and getting back into that space of like really, really owning a space.
Yes.
So the transition was hard, but also I feel like it was probably needed. It was the right thing at the right time, and it really put me into, here's a city you'll love, here are some people you'll love. And but it kind of started a pattern for us as well, I think, which is super important. it started the pattern of us actually specifically making time for each other, because you and I weren't, because you were traveling so much and I was also traveling sometimes, we actually had to like book in that specific time and make time for each other. And I think that started a pattern that has carried on for another decade.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Look, I agree. It was never, it wasn't planned, right? There was no planning around my working week or work. Well, there was a plan, but there was no plan around how the weeks unfolded or what was coming next. As I mentioned earlier, it was such a freight train that sometimes we just didn't have time to think about what was coming next.
Yeah.
And by the time you boarded a plane and got off a plane, you were booking your next ticket to get on another plane again.
Exactly.
And go to the next state and develop and create the next thing that was going on. So, yeah, it was a really interesting and growing time, I think, for both of us.
Yeah.
And during that time, there were some things that you did as well. And one of them was you shot up off to the northern part of Queensland, or was it Northern Territory?
Far North Queensland.
It was FNQ, so Far North Queensland. And it was a passion project for you, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. And you went up, was it Jarwin?
Jarwin, yeah.
Jarwin. So you worked in the remote Indigenous community up there?
Look at the smile on your face.
Oh,
yeah,
smile, yeah.
I think about it. And it's like, this was an opportunity through Westpac Bank. I was working with Bank of Melbourne at the time, so that is a financial institution of Westpac. So Westpac owns it. And Westpac has been heading Jarwin for a long time, which is all about creating opportunity for people inside of those communities in lots of different ways. And it's expanded since then as well. Like that was back in 2014. So that was a long time ago now. So that's 8 years ago and it's leaps and bounds, you know. But the opportunity I had was to actually go up there and work at Jarragon College at Gordonvale and help sort of do different things for the school, whether that's in class with students, help organise things in the library, all of the different activities for all of the different age groups. So yeah, I got that opportunity to go up there and do that. This is what I mean. This is what I was saying when you were off travelling. I was like, okay, I got to actually go and really invest in the things that was my focus, to go and invest in the things that I realised mattered to me. And that was a cool opportunity, yeah. Yeah,
look, I really like that. And the reason why I shouldn't say I love that. This really goes hand in hand with that being of service mindset. It's not so much about the place that you went to or the people that you were with, but it's all about being of service. So it's actually, it's about helping others. Yeah. Regardless of their background and where they're from. But it's actually about getting out there and actually being, a part of the community. And it's so prevalent today in our lives, not just our lives, but everyone's lives, the global lives of everyone, that how important communities are today compared to how it appeared, how important that they were a decade ago. Today, we talk a lot about community. We talk a lot about people within our network. We talk a lot about how can we help someone through a challenging time or something that they're experiencing. And it doesn't always mean how can we financially support them, but how can we support their mental health? How can we help them esoterically? How can we actually give them the right support that they need to get through a time that might be more difficult or challenging for them? So I think Jarwin you had an amazing time, and I know I saw
such a special experience.
Yeah.
Like being able to go and, I'm just going to say, welcomed with open arms, being able to go there and help communities. What we were actually helping children do is to get them to school and to show them that education can actually lead them somewhere to job prospects. And that could be anywhere in the country. And probably one of the biggest hurdles that they find is leaving their community to go and do that. So, but showing them that there are opportunities outside of their specific community. There's a lot of different challenges to get them to get them outside of that. But yeah, the opportunity to give is far beyond monetary compensation.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can look anywhere and someone will take you up on an offer for your time.
Yeah.
Or your, whatever talent you have to support. Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
100%.
I love it. So 2015, we're working through life together, experienced a lot of international travel, and throughout those travel experiences, we certainly picked up on a number of things that people were doing in their lives, and we thought, oh, that'd be really cool. One of those things that I picked up on was a conversation that I had with one of the couples that were on our 2012 European extravaganza, I would call it. Mm-hmm. So I promptly explored, looking at getting my citizenship for Poland, which is my family heritage, which you recommended that I should pursue. And I was super lucky because my mother and father, or my grandfather, who fought in World War II when Germany invaded,
He was in the Polish Army.
He was a rifleman, and he was a senior soldier, as they call it back then. And he was captured relatively earlier on in the war, as many people were. He was very lucky to actually. He was very lucky to make it through probably some of the hardest times that we've seen in the world. And he brought so many original pieces of documentation with him when he moved over here in 1946. And he ended up in Newcastle in New South Wales when he first arrived. And prior to that, they spent 3 years in Germany before they migrated to Australia. But I was so lucky. He had all of these original documents. We still have them to this day. Mm-hmm. And we're talking like 60 and 65-year-old pieces of paper that are actually in relatively mint condition because they've been stored and kept so well. Condition. So now I'm lucky enough to say that I'm a dual citizen. I went through a process with a company called Polarin in Melbourne. They were absolutely amazing. Highly recommend them. Again, I'm going to share some details with these guys at the end of my show in the show notes. So have a look for them if you're ever looking to explore, citizenship, in Europe, more specifically Poland. They can definitely help you with that. They were absolutely amazing. It was I think probably about a 5-month process, and there was a number of hoops to jump through. I was very fortunate because we had a lot of the original documentation, and anything else was found in the Australian archives. There was other documentation there, and also, funnily enough, there was documents still in Poland in their archives, which I was just mic drop time. Like my mind was blown that even existed because of the war and the fact that Germany tried to pretty much erase most of the records at the time. So, moving on. So, Sian, in 2015, you pivoted. Mm-hmm. You went on a different path, down a different alley.
Yeah,
into
it wasn't
IT.
The first time. So,
tell us about that.
Well, it wasn't the first time. So I had gone from construction into finance as well. So after, during that whole health bit that we were talking about, I'd gone into finance, and I'd been in finance for, I think, like 5 years. And it was definitely 5 years, actually. And the position that I was wanting to create as something more solid and something more permanent within the head office of the bank at the time wasn't available. So with that not being available at the time, I decided to have a look elsewhere, and I found a position in IT. So
awesome.
Yes, it is awesome. And I started out as an office manager for a digital agency called Squiz. And, Squizzes was at the time a small to medium sort of size startup, and it was really sort of gaining traction. So I decided to start as office manager and then built my IT career from there.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. What did you like most about working in IT? What was the standout thing when you first joined the industry?
I think tech as a whole, like, it's I'd always kind of been around a lot of different programs, especially in finance. You're surrounded by technology all of the time.
Yeah.
And I was doing technical training for bank new starters in my role. So I was actually part of the onboarding system for banking, but I didn't realize that I was doing that until I went into IT, and that was actually an existing role, was technical training. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I can just learn this system and then I can teach other people. And I was really lucky to be pushed through not just office management, but being pushed through to customer success, which is like my favorite place to be, because it's not just sales. It is actually, it's not just sales. It's actually being a partner to a customer and making sure that they're actually finding value in something beyond an initial sale. They need to keep reinvesting in you with money. Like, it's a monetary reinvestment.
Yeah.
Because you're showing them value in what you have to offer. So it's not a quick sale, it's a partnership, and it's forever ever, as long as you can keep that going. Software is pretty great like that because it keeps evolving for the customer.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah, awesome. Very cool. Well, I like the pivot.
I like the pivot.
I like the pivot then, because the pivot then very much shows what you're doing today, which we'll talk about shortly. But we're not there yet. I did a little bit of self-discovery for myself. I was around about 2015, 2016, and very similar to you, working for, volunteering for Jarwin. I felt like I needed to give more back to my community. Around that time in my life, we were working tremendously long hours and doing a lot of travel at work. And look, I'm not sure. It may have had something to do with the goals that I had set up for myself the previous year for the following year.
Yeah.
And it was very much about being of service. And while I was doing the exploratory work of trying to find how am I going to give back, how can I give back best to my community and service the community better that I'm working in, I found it very difficult to align myself with any particular organisation, because there was just this feel like it was just another job, and there wasn't really anything that I felt attracted to in them. And that's not to say that any of the volunteer organisations out there are doing a bad job. It just it has to fit, right? It has to fit in with your morals and values 100%. And who you are as a person. And being a dad of 3 kids, one of the things I'm incredibly passionate about was kids, and being involved with kids at a younger age, and being in kids at a stage where they're in a very, very much a development period of their lives, and how can I have impact with them at that time. So I was lucky enough to be accepted in with the Royal Children's Hospital, the RCH, and it was an incredible experience. I started working in the emergency department to begin with, and it was very much about making coffee and having conversations with people and helping people through some pretty tough and challenging times. Because
I'm going to interject here and just say, anyone that doesn't actually know Mark personally, he's a child magnet. Children love you, and it was no surprise to me that this is where you wanted to go next. Please continue. I just wanted to put that in there.
Yeah, thanks very much. Started in the emergency department, really, really great area to work in, and found myself after about 1.5 years, 2 years, wanting to be more involved. And I moved away from emergency into the wards. Wards are something that I wasn't prepared for. It was absolutely way more emotionally. I wouldn't say taxing is probably the right word, but it was very emotionally heavy, because you're around young infants and young kids who are obviously going through some incredibly challenging times in life. A lot of the area that I worked in was with people that were suffering different forms, different stages of cancer, and
that's heavy. Hey?
It was super heavy, super heavy, and really tough. But it was super rewarding, because if I could just walk away on any given day when we were there volunteering by putting smiles on people's faces, you know that you'd done the very best for them at the time. Because, the parents that go in and out of the hospitals, they've still got to work and earn a living and make life work when their kids are sick. And I think that's what you don't see is, you can't just drop everything when people are sick. It's not that easy. If you don't have the right
life working,
you've got to keep you've got to juggle all of these different balls at the same time. You've got a really, really sick kid. And so that was an incredible number of years. I think I ended up being involved in the volunteering at the RCH for about 5 years. And I also did quite a bit of work with Challenge as well. Challenge is another group where I was a volunteer for and did a lot of camps. And I was told about Challenge through one of the patient's parents. She had said to me, she goes, "Have you ever heard of Challenge?" And Challenge had helped them and her family a lot. And she said, "You'd be great. You should go and talk to them." And it was organic. It was just like, yeah, cool. Sounds awesome.
Whenever you came home from doing a camp or from the hospital, I've never seen you more satisfied. It was just one of those things that I knew that you're designed to give back.
Yeah.
When you see that and someone go, oh, they're just like so happy. Yeah. It's a thing. Fulfillment is like overload.
Absolutely. 100% plus. Like it is such a rewarding place to be in when you know you've impacted someone else's life, particularly at a younger age, because kids are so innocent, right?
Yeah.
And they really appreciate. It's interesting though. I should say that they are innocent, but oh my God, when you go on these camps, right? You should see it when their parents are there dropping them off to get on the bus. They're like Jekyll and Hyde. So the parents are there, and I mean this in a really, really polite way, but the parents are there. The parents are like, "Hey, Johnny, behave yourself, have a great camp, and they're nodding and all of the great things are happening. And then as soon as the parents get in their cars and drive off and we're on the bus and the music starts playing, Johnny turns into like, wow, he's like next level child. Like parents are gone. It's like the shackles are off. I'm going to become someone completely. They break out completely. Oh, you're my group leader. Oh, I don't care. Whatever. And they just go off. But I say that in such with such jest and humour and love.
Sure.
It is so refreshing to see, but it's so polarising to see as well. It's like, oh my God, can I get Johnny back who was there 5 minutes ago? But no, the camps were incredible. So really enjoyed it. Can't wait to get back into it. And so we've done a lot of solo trips, a lot of traveling trips, a lot of international and domestic trips over our time. We've been to, I think I did a little bit of a count the other day. I think I've been to like 36 or 37 countries or something in like just over 10 years, which is super stupid and crazy. It's a lot of countries when you add it up, because you don't normally think about it. It's just when you get on a plane and you just travel, and then
we bought scratch maps one time. I feel like we haven't updated them.
We have COVID poo-pooed that. Yeah. We've got them there, but yes, there was a lot of travel, which I think was great, because for anybody that does or travel or is thinking of traveling around the world absolutely opens up your mind to a complete different way of living. You have a finer appreciation for how other people live. It really opens your eyes up to, it definitely puts you out of your comfort zone depending upon which country you go to. But it certainly, you grow as an individual. What are your thoughts on that?
I've been traveling forever, and like up until COVID, I'm pretty sure I went through some kind of existential crisis when COVID happened, because my life was travel. I was literally living to go somewhere else. Like that's all I ever wanted to do, was just go and see more. It definitely builds an understanding of different cultures, what everything is like somewhere else. And I think especially when you travel somewhere hard, somewhere difficult, somewhere that's really, really opposite town to where you live. So
like Cambodia.
Yeah, like Cambodia. Like Australia is incredibly lucky and rich, and yes, we have diversity.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of adversity compared to a lot of the countries I've been to. Not saying there's not adversity here, but it's nothing like somewhere like Cambodia.
Yeah. Well, while we're on Cambodia, sorry to cut you off. I know that later in, like, as recent as in the last 5 or 6 years, you decided at one point that you wanted to study to become a teacher to learn how to teach others to speak English.
Yeah, I'm a TEFL
in a foreign
teacher.
country.
Yeah.
Was it TEFL?
TEFL, yeah.
TEFL, okay. Why did you do that? Well, like, tell us a little bit more about how that came about, because I know you went to Cambodia.
Well, yeah, you were there. We went in 2010. We went together.
Yeah.
I took you on your first overseas trip.
So this is a flashback, right? 2010.
A little bit of a flashback
we
to
saw
2010.
Yeah.
Went there. My. We actually did the opposite trip to what most people do. We went through Cambodia and up the coast of Vietnam and finished in Hanoi.
Mm-hmm.
But Cambodia floored me. I was just so taken with the people and the place, and I could not believe the extreme devastation, and didn't understand the history until I was really there. And we had an amazing tour guide, Locke, who he told us everything, but it was devastating to walk away and then just go back home. I didn't really understand what I was going to do with that. I didn't have a lot of money to give at the time, but I thought they'd lost all of their educated people.
Yeah.
What could I give? And I thought, well, I'm not terrible at English. I will become a TEFL teacher and I'll go there and teach English.
Yeah.
For free.
Yeah.
I'll go there and I'll teach English to children for free.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
Yeah.
I decided to go there and met some incredible people, but lived in a school for 3 months that was all locked up at night. It was really weird.
And at the time, right, when you did that, sorry to jump in.
Yeah.
At the time when you did that,
yeah,
and it's probably still the same today, like teaching the young kids their English is like so powerful, right? Like it's huge. Like on the scale of, you know, what they need. Like we all know they need a lot more than that in the country, but free education is massive, right?
It really is. Look, I look at it as that being a major issue. There are a lot of big issues with other international influence in the country, but as far as someone who is from a first world country and didn't really know what else they could do, they had lost all of their educated people through, you know, the Khmer Rouge and all that whole thing that happened, not going into details, but they had lost all of their older educated people, and starting at the bottom and helping that, you know, that root system of education is what will build the future.
Yeah.
And if you can start there, that most of the world now that are going to be able to financially support them coming in and out of the country may be English speaking.
Yeah.
So starting there may be able to build the financial future. It's what I had to offer at the time.
Oh, look,
yeah.
Super powerful. And I know that you made some great relationships with different people all around the world. You know, you've got a friend in South Africa who you talk with regularly.
I know, I love her.
Yeah, Mackie. Hey, how are you? I know you'll listen to this episode at some point. And yeah, so that's incredible. Yeah, what a way to give back.
Life-changing.
Yeah.
Life-changing. Yeah.
Awesome.
Need to do more of that.
2018 has happened. We've moved on a little bit. And, you know, while my job for me sort of moved around a little bit, and I moved away from, you know, working in tiles back into sort of waterproofing and adhesive products for a little while. That's okay. We won't spend too much time on that. My audience will learn more about that in future episodes. You have then decided that it was time to start some businesses.
You make me sound so flippant.
Flippant isn't the word I'd use, but, you know, that you were obviously inspired by something, and you were inspired by something to want to open these businesses up. So tell us more about IG Colour Floor Celebrations. I believe you kicked off in 2018.
I did. I did. It's kind of a double-edged sword. So when I was in Cambodia teaching English, two things happened. So the first thing that happened was my sister's partner, Mark, passed away from a terminal illness, and that was something that I knew was going to happen while I was over there. So that was hard.
Absolutely.
But also I had been thinking about becoming a celebrant for a long time, and the reason that had kind of happened at the same time. The other thing that happened while I was over there is that same-sex marriage was actually allowed in Australia, and the bill was passed while I was over there.
Yeah.
So a couple of things happened where I realised I want to be a celebrant because I want to do end-of-life ceremonies for terminal people. The way through that door is to become a celebrant. What a great time. I had quite a few friends who are of who were not allowed to marry until that bill was passed. So I was then going to be able to do their weddings and be part of that community, which I'm a huge supporter. So I decided to become a celebrant. The way through that door is to start with weddings and really, really get your head around the legal paperwork and all the jargon and what actually happens with those different systems. So I started studying as soon as I came back to become a celebrant for those two reasons. And I started my business in 2018 after I graduated.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
Nice. Awesome story. Love it.
Cool story. Yeah.
Cool story.
Yeah.
Wow. And of course, the business is still going today.
Yeah, it's going.
It's been relocated, right? It's been relocated from Melbourne to Queensland.
It is Brisbane, Sunshine Coast.
And that was a bit of a challenge, but we'll get into some of those things soon. But yeah, wow. And still running with that, which is great.
Yeah, it's cool.
2019, a really, really interesting year.
It was a big year.
It was a massive year for both of us. And I remember the year vividly. I'd obviously had run in, was making some, well, I wouldn't say run in, I was making some big decisions about my career and where I wanted to take things next. And I'm still where I am today and made that decision in 2019. So I joined Top Notch Tools in the power tool, tiling tool space, which I had a plethora of experience in because it was something that I was very close to when I worked at National Tile. So working with international companies and different countries that made heaps of tiling tools and equipment. So I was very familiar with all of the product ranges and how to bring them into the country and how to set them up so that we could sell them into the marketplace and provide the right technical support and after-sales service and all of those things into the industry. So that sort of happened mid to late 2019. I did my first overseas trip to America for work. So I went over to California and met with the guys at IQ Power Tools and met the co-founder and the investors and the people in the business, which was just amazing. So it was a very different way of being doing these sort of roles, was actually getting in there and being in touch with the people that were behind the brainchild of the product, and that was really cool.
I'm going to say 2019 is when I think, having watched you for over a decade in your career, that's when you really started to come into your own. People were coming to you with different questions and for advice, or the people that you might know, or even just because you know someone, you'll know the answer to this. There were lots of things happening in 2019, and I think that the move into the role that you did from where you were going was only natural. But yeah, it was a huge year, but I think it all kind of clicked and came together for you. There was it was that whole move to Melbourne was kind of it was leading up to that.
Yeah.
Which was weird. It's weird to say it because that's a decade of stuff that happened. But yeah.
Yeah, look,
I can see it.
I appreciate you saying that. And it literally is about making choices in life and following a path.
Yeah. And
it felt right at the time. In 2019, it felt right. It felt right, the right thing to do. It was the right conversations with the right person at the right time. And, I was looking for not an exit strategy, but for a next step. And we ended up over in America, I think August, September of 2019. And fast forward just a brief moment after being in the business for a few months, we ended back up over there again in 2020 for World of Concrete, which is which is in Las Vegas, which is an amazing construction product show. And it's on again next year for anybody that's interested in wanting to go. And then COVID happened. So we got back home on February 9th, 2020, and then COVID. And we're not going to talk too much about this. However, for our listeners, wherever you're from, Melbourne went through 6 lockdowns. There's no other way to literally. There's no other way to cut and dice what happened in Melbourne. 6 lockdowns. We're not going to go into anything about. It was incredibly tough. We dynamically had to shift our behaviour probably on a daily to weekly basis based upon what was happening. And I know I don't want this to sound like we are less fortunate or more fortunate than anybody else out there. It was just a thing that we had to deal with. We definitely experienced some bloody challenging times through COVID in Melbourne, probably because at the time it was the strictest lockdown of any state in Australia. And when I say that, we had nightly curfews where at 9 p.m. at night you had to be in your homes. You weren't allowed out till 5 a.m. There was a radius boundary within a state. So, metropolitan people couldn't go into regional and vice versa. We couldn't travel beyond 5 kilometres.
Helicopters.
There was helicopters at night surveying the. It sounds like a
1 hour of exercise a day.
Yeah, 1 hour of exercise a day. It actually sounds like an Xbox game.
That sounds like prison camp. But anyway.
But anyway, just to paint the picture for anybody that doesn't know, and the reason I say that is because since we moved back home to Brisbane, which was probably at the time a crazy idea, but it has turned out to be one of the best ideas that we've had in the last few years.
It's a good decision.
Was coming back home to Brisbane because, as we have done before, a change of environment brings a change of energy, brings a change of perspective, which allows us to then build for the next decade.
Yeah.
And we've been through some bloody tough times recently. I mean, I lost my brother. He passed away about 5 weeks ago now. And that was hard. I'm not going to talk too much about that today. It's still a pretty raw emotion, but that was hard. And we've been dealing with some other things in our lives as well that have happened. Some incredibly joyous occasions, and some others that haven't been so incredible.
It's been very different since we've come home, which is really good.
Yeah,
we've needed that.
What do you think is different about it this time, though?
It's just completely different. Like the move from Victoria was a very conscious, like a very purposeful decision. Whereas like going down there was kind of like whimsical and like, okay, let's just go. We'll go do this thing. And that was, we were down there for 10 years. And then we've come back home and it was actually really hard to get back. It was really hard to get back here. For me, it was, I know it's very different for you. For me, it was, I actually had to uproot my business. I do colourful celebrations and like disappoint a lot of couples and then rebuild a business from December this year just gone.
Yeah.
But I also think that that's tested my business. Like, is this structure going to survive everywhere?
Yeah.
Is it robust enough to, like, as a sole trader, to rebuild somewhere else, to build a brand somewhere else?
Yeah.
But being close to family has been a lot more important than what I thought it would be. Being close to, your daughter and a little grandson and all of the things. Yeah. Being closer to my sister and my nieces, being closer to, and like catching up with very, very old friends has been not what I was expecting. I hadn't planned it. It's just been like a completely different vibe to what I thought it was going to be.
In saying that.
In a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% in a good way. I do miss, though, our friends that we have in Melbourne.
Our whole friend network is down there.
And we sincerely cherish their friendship, and we try and keep in touch with them as much as we can. And we have friends that we've made, developed close relationships with, and moved to Adelaide, who we loved as well. So, yeah, been pretty massive.
We put a lot of energy into keeping in touch with all of those people, and making sure that they stay a part of our circle, because it's not. You could just let that go, but I just can't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Decade of friendship, can't let that go.
Sian, it's been an incredible time talking with you today and sharing with the listeners more about us, and just sort of touching back on that raw and honest start that we had to any relationship. Today has been a pretty raw and honest discussion, and talking about what we've been through. And I know we've just highlighted some of the key milestones in our relationship over the past decade or so. And I think that's really important, and that's what makes people so powerful, is that, I'm certainly not going to say that I'm the world's foremost expert on relationships, but communication is key. It's really important that you have really clear communication with your partner, and that it's really important that you explain yourself, and you talk regularly on a daily basis about things that are happening in your life, and you share things that help each other. I'm lost here. Talk to me.
I was going to say the same thing. Something we didn't mention, though, that I think is really important to how we communicate is that, yes, we do lots of things that are separate, and we have like separate lives, and we have all these things apart. We plan our time together, Yeah. We've talked about that. But one of the things that we do that I think is priceless is we do our goals together.
Yeah.
And this is something we've done for years and years and years, and we used to do it quarterly, but usually we do it annually, and we check in, and maybe we do it like a half-yearly check-in, and like we're always looking at where these goals are going. And they don't necessarily have to be a lot to do with each other. We have an entire section that is about our relationship, but a lot of our other goals are entirely separate. But we know what each other's are, so that we can support each other in that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something, I don't know if it's unique. I just think it's like a really good way.
It's unique to us, right?
I think so. I don't know. There's probably lots of couples that do it, but I think that is a success point of ours.
Yeah.
Being able to come back in, like we look at those things and I know what you're doing because you share them with me, and you know what I'm doing because I've shared them with you. They don't have to be about what we're doing together all the time. They are about what we do individually, but we know how to support each other because we know where we're going.
Yeah.
That's all.
Agreed.
Just want to put it in there.
Yep, it's there. It's there now. Sian, we're going to go into the final four. I haven't done this yet.
Ooh.
My other episodes have been jam-packed with some really, really awesome content. So today is the first time. So final four fast-track questions.
Okay.
We're going to finish off with today before we wrap up. So let's start with, what is a common myth about your job or field of expertise?
Okay.
And you can choose any job, because I know you've got multiple.
I have multiple. So I'm a customer success manager for tech, so at the moment fintech. But a common myth is that we are support desk.
Oh, well.
Yes, we know what that is and how to deal with it, but also we're actually designed to partner with a customer and help them reach their objectives for their business to make sure that they continue to invest in our product and reap the benefits.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love it. Who's been your most important professional mentor?
Oh my God. Wow. Okay, so I have two answers for this. My first mentor, I asked her to be my mentor and she freaked out. Her name is Anita Beeman. She was my branch manager when I was at St. George Bank, and she was just such a powerhouse and really wanted me to do my best and be my best. Didn't want to be my mentor. She was like, you don't need that. It's fine. I'm like, please, But Anita is still my first impressive person I wanted to be my mentor. My second is my Reiki master, Kim. She is always there for any and all questions and wants me to be my best. And there's just a vibe there that she is always on the same level. So business-wise, when it comes to bettering yourself and being on top, those are the two people in my life that have been like right up there. Yeah.
Awesome. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would
Portugal.
Portugal. Okay, cool. I like it. Why Portugal?
Oh man, I haven't been there yet.
Nah, okay.
It's so great. The people, the place is amazing. It's full of history. It's stunning. It's on the coastline. It's the people. My God, they're just so open and loving.
That's awesome.
It's a beautiful
I
place.
like it. What do you think the world will look like in 50 years?
Oh my God. I mean, I think I'll be around. I'm not really, like, in what respect? Because...
It's a tough question to answer these days.
Do you know what? I'm going to reach right deep down into myself and pull out the answer that I believe is right. So for me, I still believe world peace is possible. And I know that sounds very fanciful, especially in this day and age, but it's in my heart, it's still possible. I'm not talking about utopia, but I'm talking about a place where absolutely everyone can be who they are without discrimination, without judgment. And there's just a lot more harmony and understanding through the world because we are so much more connected. And I think that we're on the way there. I do. I think connection is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think with all of the advancements made in technology today and the way people are connecting and communicating through all of the different digital channels, social media, online, through mobile phones, through messenger apps, it's pretty incredible. I think the connectivity amongst human beings has been amazing the past decade. And I think it'll only accelerate in the future. And I think that communication will help build a platform for that type of aspiration.
I believe so too. So I think that all of the connections that you just talked about are what is triggering a higher consciousness in the human race. So I believe that connectivity is actually getting us to realize that we are a little bit above and beyond all of the basic stuff, all of that sort of the things that don't serve us, don't matter as much. And we are actually, we're headed to a better place with all of this.
Yeah.
Beyond the technology side, I think we're all just coming to a realization that the bad news isn't actually necessarily what we need to listen to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed. 100%. Sian Lavater, thank you so much. We truly appreciate you being a part of the show today. And thank you so much for sharing more about our past and what has brought us to 2022 and what will take us into the future.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Tiling Connect podcast. If you'd like to hear more, don't forget to subscribe. If you have any questions or would like to be involved in the show, email us at tilingconnect@gmail.com. See you next episode. Until then, stay connected.